Coffee Near Me. I'm Barbara Deeb, and I am joined by Bill Goodman. You recognize that face? You saw him on KET for 20 years. Well, now he's transitioned as director of the Kentucky Humanities, which, you know, we were talking about the humanities in general and what it means, but what does it mean in the current environment in which we live in this year, 2018?
Well, I think the humanities can offer clarity to the environment that we're in, whether it is political or otherwise. And I think one of the ways that we try to do that is through history. It's through literature. It's through stage presentations. We're going to be involved and have been involved all year in a program called Kentucky Reads, All the King's Men. It's allowed us to delve deeply into Robert Penn Warren's masterful novel, which is just great,
Timeless.
and from Guthrie, Kentucky, not too far from here, but Robert Penn Warren did that, as well as poetry and essays, and so it gives us sort of his insight into what was happening in the 1940s that some people think might be relevant with the themes that we're seeing today play out politically across the landscape. It gives us a chance to make that comparison. It gives students an opportunity to look back at history, the history that's being written as we speak, and how that compares to maybe what went on in the 60s or what went on in the 50s under different presidents, and what was going on when Robert Penn Warren wrote the novel. All of that contributes to what the definition of humanities is, and how that definition plays across so many different genres.
Jump back a minute. So we've got the humanities. Let's talk about humanity in this day and time. Do you still see humanity?
Oh, I definitely. I'm very confident that we can converse with one another, that we can promote civil dialogue, that people need to get to a point that they're sort of putting aside so much blind partisanship and come together to talk about issues and to solve problems. That's the only way this country, this state is going to be able to make progress over the years, is to work together. I think that's been proven time and time again. It's what Abraham Lincoln called for, and I think most of our presidents have done the same thing. It takes both sides. It takes men, women, and children coming together. I'm very optimistic about what lies ahead.
Civilization. Let's talk about some of those, the Kentucky Reads. All right, let's get specific.
Yeah.
So this was a statewide initiative. It is a statewide initiative, but it began last spring, and it's continuing, and it's going to culminate. So basically what he and the Kentucky Humanities are doing is encouraging everyone to read All the King's Men, okay?
It's a great program.
Yeah.
Some people are a little bit daunted by a 600-page novel.
I was just going to say, by the size of the book?
Yeah,
it's big.
but I tell you, if you take the time to read it and maybe then take the occasion to read it again, to get into the writing that Robert Penn Warren applied to it, and the thought process in a piece of fiction is absolutely marvelous. I mean, people don't write like that anymore.
Well, he's won a Pulitzer Prize.
Won the Pulitzer for that novel, and 2 Pulitzers in poetry. A lot of people think he's much better known as a poet than he is a novelist. And he also wrote nonfiction, a lot of essays.
But you talk about I've heard you say this before, or we've had this discussion, Robert Penn Warren, it's that poetry that sort of comes through in his novel.
It's the lyrical way that he puts words together and puts sentences on a page. And you just have to spend a few minutes with any part of that novel to realize what a great writer he was, and why that novel means so much today. And there are so many other novels in his, with all of what he wrote, that some people think a number of other novels are even better than All the King's Men.
Oh my goodness, haven't heard that. But they made a movie out of it, and we're talking 1946, 47 time period.
Yeah.
And some of those, like you say, some of what's in that book contained resonate today.
Sure, yeah. 2 movies from the novel. One in the 90s with Sean Penn, and the original that won the Academy Award with Broderick Crawford. We just saw both of those, and
which one did you like better?
You know, I liked both in different ways. I didn't think Sean Penn was the greatest Willie Stark, but I'll have to tell you, I came away thinking that the novel, as we have this debate with a lot of people about should we read the book first or see the movie first, there's no question, hands down, that the novel is so much better than either of the movies.
All 600 pages.
Another thing that we incorporated in our Kentucky Reads program in 3 of the statewide conversations that we're going to have is the play, All the King's Men, that Robert Penn Warren wrote.
Yeah, people don't realize that he wrote a play too.
That's right. There were a couple of
prolific guy.
Yeah, and just kept writing way up until he was well into his 60s and continuing to put out work.
So this Kentucky Reads, now we have something coming up in the Bowling Green area, and that's going to happen in October 23rd.
Yep, October 23rd. I got my notes right here. 6:30 Central Time.
Right here at Jody Richards Hall, which is where we're at on the WKU campus.
And you're involved in it, Barbara. What we're doing, and I'll just briefly, if I can, we think that to give some context to the novel for those who haven't waded through the 600 pages, we have, with the University Press of Kentucky, published All the King's Men Reader's Companion, written by a brilliant Robert Penn Warren scholar at Northern Kentucky University named Jonathan Cullick. And Jonathan boiled down all of the nuts and bolts in All the King's Men to 100 pages. And we have that book available. It's available on Amazon or from the University Press of Kentucky. And we have another Warren scholar who's going to present to the audience in a very short version, maybe 25 or 30 minutes, an overview of All the King's Men for the audience. And then we have 4 panelists, you being the moderator of this great esteemed panel. Jonathan Jeffrey is our scholar. Ronnie Ellis, the prolific reporter and writer for CNHI publications. And who am I leaving out?
Jody
Richards. How could I? We're right in front of Jody Richards' home here. Sure, he's going to play our public figure. So public figure, journalist, moderator, and then historian, scholar. And you will lead them in a discussion about the things that we just finished talking about. How Robert Penn Warren's work in All the King's Men is relevant today, but more particularly, especially in your area of expertise, journalism, how journalism has changed. Jack Burden, the journalist in All the King's Men, what was he doing at that time before he joined Willie Stark in the governor's office? What's happening to journalism today? Where are young people getting most of their journalism? How are we all affected by social media and what's being put out there? And believe it or not, I think Robert Penn Warren would be very proud of all of us if he knew that we were talking about Facebook and Instagram and Snapchat. He would probably be doing the same thing.
I love it. And while we're talking about that, if you want to continue the conversation, you can do so in the comments section. Who would you like to sit down and have a cup of coffee with? Well, this has been fun. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it has been great fun.
We've been talking with Bill Goodman, the director of the Kentucky Humanities. This is Coffee Near Me. I'm Barbara Deeb. Yay!